We are not too far away from the 2019-2020 NHL season. In today's video, I want to make some bold predictions for the upcoming season. I'll give you my top 5 coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we're not that far away from the NHL season kicking off. We're only a couple of weeks away. We're now pretty far into training camp and the preseason. We've had some preseason games to watch and kind of get a little bit of a hockey fix here. And I kind of want to start making some predictions for the upcoming year. Now, for over the last couple of years, I've always made my bold predictions heading into the regular season. And that's what I want to do here today. So I've got the top 5 bold predictions. Of course, I don't expect everybody to agree with me on all of these. So feel free to leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think and let me know what you think are some bold predictions for the upcoming NHL season. Bold prediction number 1. Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs is named captain and goes on to win the Rocket Richard Trophy, outscoring Alex Ovechkin and all the other top goal scorers from around the NHL. I think this is going to be the year that we see Matthews stay healthy, play all 82 NHL games, and have the best season of his young NHL career so far. I fully suspect sometime between now and opening night for the Maple Leafs to call a press conference, name him captain before the season gets underway, and he's going to go into the season very much motivated with that C on his jersey. Having William Nylander with him all season on his wing is certainly going to be a big help as well. They've played pretty well together so far during the preseason games. Nylander looks to be playing much better. I think missing camp last year obviously had a major impact on his performance last year. So having that playmaking winger back along his side, staying healthy, having the C in his jersey to be motivated, I think he's really going to explode out of the gates this year and go on to win the Rocket Richard Trophy. He's been one of the top scorers on 5-on-5 play over the last few years since he's been in the NHL, and I really expect that to really go up a notch again for the coming season. So that's my first bold prediction. Austin Matthews is named captain and wins the Rocket Richard Trophy, scoring 50-plus goals and outscoring the rest of the NHL. Bold prediction number 2. Stanley Cup winning goaltender Jordan Binnington has what we call the sophomore slump and certainly takes a major step back during his play. Obviously, he came on last year with the Blues at the halfway point of the year in January and really was a big reason why he not only got them into the playoffs, but helped them go on to win the Stanley Cup. During the playoffs, he certainly had his moments when he was brilliant, and he certainly had his times when he struggled as well. But when he struggled, the team seemed to bail him out, and they seemed to get the job done as a team. But I can still see him having a decent overall season. I just don't see him continuing to play at the clip that he was playing last year. It just seems to be not reasonable for him to be able to continue at that kind of pace. I do think we're going to see him struggle more than we might think, and Jake Allen get between the pipes more often than not. Now, I think fair to say, most people probably expect Binnington to probably play around 60 games and around 20-22 games or so for Jake Allen, and I think it's going to be a little bit more of an even swing here, where we're going to see Jake Allen getting in the net probably 40 to 45 times, some of those spelling him off in relief, and the other times being the starter. I think we're going to end up more of a 50-50 situation in the Blues net, and by the end of the season, I think it's going to be fair to say as well, the Blues fans will be actually happy that Jake is still in the fold there with the Blues. He's going to end up bailing him out, helping Binnington grow as a goaltender throughout the year, and at the same time, the two as a combo, though I do expect the Blues to get into the playoffs, to have a chance to defend their championship. I just don't think Binnington is going to be the major reason why for the coming season. Bold prediction number 3. We have an awesome group of rookies coming into the NHL this year, just like we have in the past few years. There's lots and lots of great young NHL players looking to make their debuts and make their mark on the NHL. Now, of course, at the 2019 NHL draft, it was all about Hughes versus Kakko. Who was the better player? I know there's a small group out there that seem to think Kakko's the better player, where many people thought Hughes was the better prospect. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see how that all works out longer term, and I do think both players are very, very likely to have strong NHL careers. I don't think they're going to be having the NHL starts that many people might think, and I don't see either of them being in the conversation for the Calder Trophy. I do expect them to have some decent years, but I think Hughes is going to struggle a little bit more than most people think. I don't think he'll have a terrible year or anything, but I just don't see him exploding out of the gates and putting up the huge point totals like he's done in the past. I think it's going to take him a little bit more time to adjust to the NHL, to really get his feet wet here before we see that bigger production a few years down the road. In Kaapo Kakko's case, I can see him having a type of year, kind of what we saw out of Andrei Svechnikov last year with the Hurricanes. I can see him maybe scoring around 20 goals. I think he will be good. I just don't think he's going to be dominant and, in the conversation for the Calder Trophy. I'm going to say that the Calder Trophy is going to be dominated by defensemen this year, with guys like Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes and Dante Fabro. Noah Dobson of the New York Islanders, I think they're all going to be the more dominant rookies of the season. I think they're going to be getting a lot more of the attention. And I see one of the top D winning the Calder Trophy, most likely being Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche. I think he's not only going to be a top rookie, but he's also going to be a breakout player this year. He's going to have a huge impact on the Avalanche and help them succeed, and at the same time getting himself a ton of success and a ton of recognition all at the same time. So as much as Hughes and Kakko will be great players long term, have great careers, I think they're going to be overshadowed by some really strong defensemen this year, and Cale Makar is going to steal the show to be the NHL's top rookie for the season. Bold prediction number 4. Vancouver Canucks forward Elias Pettersson goes on to break the 100-point mark in his sophomore season. Of course, Pettersson had a terrific rookie year. Unfortunately, he was derailed a few times by injuries. Otherwise, he would have been up much higher into the scoring leaders. Certainly gave Vancouver Canucks fans a lot to be optimistic about for the future. Had a stronger rookie season than most people probably would have predicted or projected him to have, and I really see him taking that many more steps forward. I mean, based on what we saw so far in the preseason and training camp, it looks like he's added a fair bit of muscle this year. I think the Canucks roster as a team overall are going to be stronger and better this year as well. So when you put that all together, I really see him taking some major steps forward with all the additions to the team and the muscle he's added on. I think that's going to help him stay in the lineup more frequently, have less injury time this year, and really push his point totals forward and be in and around that century mark during his sophomore season. I'm not quite convinced yet he's going to lead Vancouver to the playoffs, at least not this year. I do think we'll see big improvements from the Canucks this year, but I do think they're going to be in a dogfight for some of those final wildcard spots in the Western Conference. I do think they'll be in the conversation as the season comes to an end. I'm just not quite convinced yet that they're going to be in the mix and actually clinch a spot before the season's over. Bold prediction number 5. The Pittsburgh Penguins miss the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, I know many of you out there, especially Penguins fans, might think I'm a little bit crazy and a little bit too bold for this prediction, but I just think with all the moves that they've made, I think the fact that Phil Kessel is gone, and I understand why they had to take care of that Kessel situation. It really sounds like there was some major issues between Kessel and the coaching staff, things between him and Malkin, and there was some rumors that Malkin wanted Kessel traded, or he wanted out himself and basically put it to the Penguins that if you don't move him, you have to move me. And really, we don't know exactly what all is true within that or not, but there was definitely some major issues with Kessel and the rest of the group. So moving him was a necessity. I get that, but you're going to have a really difficult time replacing his point production. You obviously have some other guys that are coming in like Galchenyuk and Brandon Tanev, Dominic Cahoon. I'm just not convinced that they're really a better team than they were last year, and last year really was not an easy task for them to get into the playoffs. Early on in the season, it looked as though they might actually miss as well. That Metropolitan Division is going to be extremely competitive this year. If you look at most of the teams that missed the playoffs last year, there's been a great deal of improvement there as well. So I just think that this is going to be the year that the Penguins actually take a step back and miss the playoffs for the first time in a significant period of time here. I don't think they're going to totally bomb and really miss by a lot, but I can see them being in the mix, kind of like what we saw like at the Columbus and Montreal near the end of last season, and then falling just a little bit short, maybe having 90 to 95 points, but not quite enough to get it done and to secure a playoff spot. I think we're kind of at a point with the Penguins where it's not quite the end of an era. You still have Crosby and Malkin and some really strong parts there, but ultimately, as a team, I just don't see them being as strong, and I think it's time that they're going to start to miss the playoffs more often than they make it over the next number of years. So that is our 5 bold predictions, but I'm going to give you one bonus prediction here as well, and it involves the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets, I think, are going to start slow. I think it's quite fair to say that it's highly likely that Kyle Connor and Patrick Laine will not both be signed by the time the NHL season starts. I think the fact that Laine is more likely to miss the start of the year than Connor, I can see the Jets maybe getting a deal done with him. I can see Laine missing the start of the year. Of course, there's also the Dustin Byfuglien situation, which is a big question mark right now. So I do think the Winnipeg Jets are going to start slow. People might predict for them to take steps back and miss the playoffs as well, which wouldn't be a huge surprise. But I do think when Patrick Laine finally does sign a deal, come back to Winnipeg, he's going to have a lot to prove. He's going to be a man on a mission and really score a ton of goals and lead that team in goal scoring yet again, even though he's going to end up missing a little bit of NHL action and end up getting the Jets back into the playoffs. But this time I think they will be stepping back and clinch a spot as a wildcard team. I see them having a second half surge, kind of like what we saw out of the Blues last year, except it's not going to be quite that dramatic. The Jets won't be down at the bottom like the Blues were, but they will be out of the playoffs, I think, come Christmas time. And then in the second half, work their way in and be this year's story of coming back in the second half of the NHL season to get themselves into the playoffs. It's quite difficult to predict right now if they're going to do any damage in the playoffs, but they very well might have some guys that are really clicking at high rates and very well could have some playoff success left in them here after all. But obviously the Jets have more questions than answers right now, but I think Patrick Laine is going to come back with a vengeance and score a ton of goals and get back to his old playing ways once he finally gets the deal done and gets back into the Winnipeg Jets lineup. So as I mentioned, I don't expect everybody to agree with all my bold predictions, and I'd love to know what yours are. So certainly leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think on these bold predictions and what do you think is going to happen for the upcoming NHL season, and we can continue the conversation down in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future videos, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.